So the Greenlining Institute started as a partnership among advocates who were looking to direct investments into communities that had been redlined, and were seeking, I guess, remedies from the financial sector to address redlining, that historic practice of keeping communities, low-income communities of color mostly, out of enjoying benefits from the financial sector, like home loans, like favorable rates, like banking institutions in their communities. So these group of folks got together and kind of wanted to do something about it. So they formed a coalition. So it was a bunch of nonprofits who had as a goal to try to get these financial services into low-income communities of color in California, and it included business chambers and media outlets and other social justice organizations. So basically, the kind of the birthplace of Greenlining was a coalition, which was the Greenlining Coalition, which we currently still manage and is a part of the organization. The coalition scheduled meetings with financial regulators and kind of try to convince them that they needed to address redlining by making sure that we had these types of services in these communities. And they were successful at highlighting the problem, at eventually getting the resources directed to the communities. And those founding members are the ones who then decided to turn that coalition into an organization, which is now the Greenlining Institute. My participation at Greenlining started 3.5 years ago, and I joined Greenlining as it was looking to further solidify the work that we'd done on climate policy in California by co-sponsoring SB 535, which was authored by Senator Kevin De Leon. The policy directs a minimum of 25% of cap and trade revenue to California's impacted communities, and they needed someone to come in to help solidify that work by tracking the resources, influencing how the resources are being implemented, and expanding upon the idea of targeting the money by implementing projects that also had co-benefits like good jobs, like democratic decision-making processes, like economic opportunities associated with contracting opportunities, just really trying to deliver the promise of what these resources could do in impacted communities. So I joined as a program manager to collaborate with the California Climate Equity Coalition, which is the main entity that we've used to advance these policies. And it includes 5 steering committee members, other nonprofit organizations working at the intersection of environmental justice, health, equity, and jobs. And that includes Asian Pacific Environmental Network, Coalition for Clean Air, Public Advocates, and SCOPE LA. And including Greenlining, we are what is known as the California Climate Equity Coalition. So I've been the lead on that work for the 3.5 years that I've been here, and now I am the director of the program. Well, I think that the Greenlining Institute's participation in planning, it depends on the issue areas that we are working on. So Greenlining has we work on primarily 6 issue areas, which includes health, economic equity, energy, telecom services, and environmental equity, and diversity and inclusion. So those are the 6 policy areas that we use. So the intersection of planning into those issue areas depends on our strategies. For the environmental equity team, planning is really a core component of how we implement the resources that are being made available by the cap and trade revenue. So those resources are funding a variety of different strategies that include affordable housing near transit, public transit, active transportation, urban forestry and urban greening, and sustainable approaches to community development. So in each one of the programs that we participate in, planning is involved in that the resources are either advancing existing plans that communities have, whether that's a climate action plan or a general plan, or cities are having to develop new plans in order to make use of the resources. So a good example of this is the Transformative Climate Communities Program, which we also co-sponsored a policy to establish this program. There's a planning portion of it, a component that would take an existing plan that a jurisdiction has already adopted, and advances the plan with the kind of the screen of the TCC program. And if successful, it could align that program towards eventually getting access to implementation resources from the TCC grant. So it basically takes an existing plan, repackages it, and then uses it for an implementation award in the future. One of the benefits of working at the Greenlining Institute is that we really collaborate with a variety of organizations, businesses, regulators, agencies, legislators. So, it's a pretty robust and very diverse pool of folks that we work with. Some of the main collaborators include, again, the steering committee members at the California Climate Equity Coalition, just APEN, Coalition for Clean Air, Public Advocates, and Scope LA. So we've been working with them for several years now on advancing climate equity work in California. We meet with them every Monday. We have a call at 2 p.m. and we've held that call for the last, I believe, 5 years. So for 5 years strong, we've been in close communication with those organizations. Other collaborators that we have include the steering committee members of the Charge Ahead campaign, and this includes NRDC, Environment California, Communities for a Better Environment, and Greenlining. So these 4 organizations make up what is called the Charge Ahead campaign, and similar with them, we've been collaborating with them since we kind of came up with the idea of a bill called SB 1275, also written by Kevin DeLeon, to advance electric vehicle adoption in all of California, but with an emphasis on disadvantaged communities. So we've been collaborating with them for, again, several years on getting those programs up and running. More recently, we're really working with folks that are working on climate adaptation and resilience work in California. And this includes a variety of environmental justice, health, and social justice organizations all throughout the state that are thinking about how to build resiliency for the most vulnerable communities. And also, more recently, we've been engaging a lot more with the private sector. So entrepreneurs that are developing new forms of clean energy technology, and we're socializing them towards ensuring that they, from an early stage, develop equity components to their strategies to make sure that we're addressing both the needs of those communities and also are recruiting those communities to participate in the clean energy economy. I like to think about our work as having permanent issues, and sometimes we have temporary alliances. There are times where strange bedfellows make for the right recipe to advance something that is really important. So in our work, whether it's a private sector entity or an organization that didn't seem quite the right fit, sometimes is the best fit because it shows how impactful the work can be or what we're trying to do is. And it also demonstrates that it's not a siloed issue, but a more comprehensive issue that we're trying to advance. So one of the potentially kind of more interesting partnerships that we've had in the past, we did have a brief partnership with Lyft, in that we were trying to figure out what are ways to make sure that as that company is delivering services, are there ways to introduce more equity outcomes or more considerations for low-income communities of color in their platform. The partnership was established. We tried some things. I don't think it's developed into something more robust, but I think that just shows one of those kind of more interesting partnerships. The organization for a long time has had partnerships, again, with ethnic business chambers, which in the clean energy sector is not kind of an entity that you would think like, oh, this is an entity that really champions environmental policy. But we have worked with them. And we have a lot of partnerships with more mainstream environmental organizations because we do see that advancing climate policy is really important, and bringing those entities along in embracing equity as a primary component of that is equally as important. So partnerships are always going to be developing, and sometimes they'll be more unexpected. But I think overall, as long as it's in advancing our mission, that's kind of the ultimate. That's really the outcome that we want to see.